The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Premier. I don't know if the Premier knows this, but International Women's Day has its roots in strikes and marches. I'm sure if the Premier had been in charge back then, he would have legislated against it and them. Those strikes were for decent wages, shorter hours, and health and safety. These are women's issues. The Premier's record on women is keeping women's wages down, denying women's right to strike, and denying women's freedom to associate. That's what bill after bill has done to home support workers, care and health workers, nurses, frontline government workers, and teachers. Mr. Speaker, can the Premier admit that his government's actions have disproportionately harmed women?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. I want to remind her, Mr. Speaker, through the entire process when it came to ensuring that we provided and supported all public sector workers, Mr. Speaker, not a single person lost any money in our government, Mr. Speaker. What we did was slow down the growth in the wages. I also want to remind the Honourable Member the investments we made, the great announcement we actually made in her riding yesterday, which was a pre-primary program, which we all know is getting our wives and daughters back into the workforce quicker, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure she would have gone to the event that happened the day before when the Honourable Member talked about the amount of investments we made in affordable childcare to ensuring that families, both men and women, can get back into the workforce to continue to provide for their families. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure she would also recognize the sooner that our wives and daughters get back into the workforce, they continue to build their pensions, they continue to work to make sure that they build their careers, they continue to grow, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud of our record, Mr. Speaker, and I want to remind the Honourable Member, when her party had a chance, they appointed 9 of 10 people to the bench that were men, Mr. Speaker. This government ensured gender equality.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth South on her final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier's response is interesting but saddening because there is so much his government could do for women, so much more. One step would be to get with the times and raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The majority of Nova Scotians making minimum wage are women, 56%, and I can table that. A $15 minimum wage would make a dramatic difference for women like Simone Maillet. She worked for nearly 41 years in a cafeteria in Church Point. She is making $14.07 an hour. As she said, in those 41 years, everything has gone up but her wages. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier mark International Women's Day by committing to the women in this province that there will be a $15 minimum wage by 2020?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. I'm very proud of the work this government did, ensuring that we changed the guaranteed income supplement, that we made sure the basic personal exemption, that we made sure low-income Nova Scotians were receiving the biggest benefit of that tax cut, the largest single tax cut in the history of our province. I want to remind the Honourable Member to continue to work with my colleagues around Atlantic Canada to ensure that we continue to build an environment in this province where all workers are treated fairly. And I want to also remind the Honourable Member that the minimum wage being set in this province is being set by a formula that was set by the NDP.